Imagine that in the future of, say, 4645, a time travel machine has been invented. Like, your assistant came in and started yelling about the mysteries of the time stream and whatnot. Naturally, as the huge skeptic you are, you ask them to bring it out. This, as it turns out, is not possible, as one, it's like in another room, and two, there was no solid way to prove that the machine actually worked, and it was way too early in its development for them to start risking human test subjects, least of all themselves. So how do we know if it actually works? It's not like we have any basis of what a time machine actually is, since there hasn't been one until now. What defines what we imagine a time machine to be in the first place? Is it even possible, or are the blatterings of your maybe high assistant just what you believe it to be? Utter hogwash? Well, some people would argue that it isn't, since if you would say, travel back in time to before your birth, which date would it been when you were really born? The day you remember you were born, or the day you traveled back to? If being born means the point in time you start existing, then wouldn't you be born in the year which you traveled back to? This scenario causes a contradiction, because you can't both be born during 4633 and 4545. Therefore, time travel is not possible since both can't be true. However, this can be solved by the concept of personal and external time. Personal time being the time like on your watch or the clock on your wall, and external time being real time, the time around you. Putting this into play, in personal time, you have been born in 4643 because that was still in the past for you, as it follows the timeline that you've experienced. However, in reality, you would have been born in 4545 because that is the time that the universe knew you were born. This will cancel out the contradiction, meaning that there's still a possibility for time travel to be real. Except, that's not the only argument against time travel. There's also the instance of time travel where you could be standing in a room and the world around you starts to move really fast and you reach say 30 years into the future, like H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. But that's not really time travel, as in reality you're just moving really slow. You're still standing in the room, so you haven't been moving anywhere. You're just a statue that's barely moving. It's just slowing you down, but it looks like it was speeding up from your point of view. It might have been a minute to you, but to others you just slowed down for 30 years. Your heart would have still been beating and you'd still be breathing. It would just been really slow. An example of this would be like in Marvel or something when Captain America was cryogenically frozen. To Captain America, it would have seemed like a second until he was revived, but he was still there living for years and years in the ice. He didn't go anywhere. So technically, it still isn't time travel. However, as Albert Einstein states, if we get into a spacecraft and travel close to the speed of light, the time inside of the spaceship would slow down, even though the world around it is still happening at a normal pace. Which would be time travel, as when the spacecraft gets back from its voyage, the Earth would have aged significantly. Yet, it's still technically not time travel, as you can't go backwards using the spaceship. Time travel going forward is just time passing. All you can really get is to slow down the ship's time to what's going on Earth. It's not like disappearing from the universe and reappearing at another point, which is generally what everyone assumes time travel to mean. Causal loops are also another paradoxy, contradiction-esque byproduct of time travel. Imagine if, say, Superman brings his author friend to the future so he could plagiarize his own book as he didn't know what to write. This creates a causal loop because the author could only plagiarize the book because he got it from the future, but he could only get it from the future since he plagiarized and published it when he got back. One event is the cause of another, and the other is the cause of the other, but there is no cause of the pair of events together. You can't have both. There is no cause of where the book came from if there is no source. Everything has a cause, so this isn't possible. On the other hand, everything doesn't really need to have a cause. Reliable narrator, am I right? Like Davis Lewis says, we should have all gotten used to some kind of uncaused and therefore unexplained stuff. Either the conditions of the Big Bang, or else the existence and nature of God, or else the infinite past of universes that will be uncaused and unexplained. This is also backed up by how physicists have found out that some subatomic events have no cause. They just happen. Therefore, causal loops can happen because an event without a cause is still a possibility. But wait, how about this? If you had a grudge against your parents and you decided to go back in time to kill them, Can you? You can't, because if you kill them before you were born, you can't be born to complete the action. Or if you kill them after you were born, you don't have the grudge to go back in time to kill them anymore. See? Paradox. Then again, there's also the idea of the multiverse theory, and in it, the many worlds theory made by Mark Tegmark, where every action you take will have multiple worlds of possibilities, where in which you maybe did something, you didn't do it, you did it differently, etc. Say in one universe you got in the job you wanted, and in another you didn't. But at the same time, each universe was split into more universes where maybe the first day of your job went smoothly, it didn't go well, you got fired from the first day, or it just went normally. Applying this theory to the paradox problem, we can argue that killing your parents creates a different parallel universe where you lived without them and their grudge. We can also argue that it's not a matter of doing the action, it's that you could have done it. Not necessarily implying that has been done, but there's still a possibility of it happening, leaving the choice in a perpetual state of they could, like Schrödinger's cat. You can't kill your parents, however, holding fixed only the past, you can kill your parents. There is no paradox. It's just all in relation to whether you can or cannot do the action. Whether the case or not, there is something about all these arguments against the notion that time travel might be possible. They're all arguing about the theory of it, not exactly mentioning the machine itself. Maybe it seems to know that time travel is possible after all.